Hey, it's Chris Allingham with the Virtual Barber Bullet. It's cold, it's rainy, it's windy here in Northern California today, so there's no grilling or barbecuing going on here at the corporate headquarters for the Virtual Barber Bullet. So today I thought I would come out here into the garage where it's dry and quiet, and I would answer some of your questions that you sent in. These are questions that have come in on email, social media channels, and on the Virtual Barber bulletin board. I got 10 questions here. Let's get to it and see what people want to know. First question, why do some butchers score or slice the membrane on ribs? Well, as you know, we like to remove the membrane on pork ribs and beef ribs because it makes for a better eating rib. That membrane is very tough. Rub, salt, other spices don't penetrate that membrane, so we take it off so that we can get some of the rub flavor into the rib from the back side, from the bone side, and it just makes the rib eat better after it's been cooked. Better butcher shops and better suppliers will remove that membrane as part of the processing, but if they don't want to take the time to do that, they might take an interim step where they'll just take a very sharp knife and cut a crosshatch pattern in that membrane in the hopes that it somehow makes the rib eat more easily, or maybe you can tear the ribs apart more easily. I'm not sure quite how effective that is. I don't do it, and I think that if you're not buying ribs from a supplier that removes the membrane, you should remove it yourself. Second question, do you use kosher salt or table salt in the rubs that you make? Well, for me, it depends on what kind of rub I'm making. If I'm making a chunky style rub, so I'm using chili pepper flakes and chunks of granulated garlic, chunks of dried onion, chunks of chili pepper. If the granule size is large, maybe even like the sugar in the raw, which is kind of a large crunchy crystal, well then I'll try to match that with a kosher salt crystal so that the rub ingredients, they're all of a similar texture. That way when you shake them up in a bottle and you sprinkle them on the food, they all kind of come out in an even distribution. If I'm making a rub that consists of very fine ingredients like granulated sugar or brown sugar, fine granulated garlic and onion powder, dry mustard, chili powder, fine ingredients, then I'll match that with a table salt because the grain size is very small. And again, when you shake them up together and you distribute them on the meat with a shaker, they come out in an even distribution. So the type of salt I use really depends on the coarse or fine nature of the rub that I'm making. Question number 3, should I include salt in my rub mixture or should I apply salt first and the remaining rub ingredients afterwards? A lot of people do separate the salt from all the other ingredients in their rub. They do that, I think, so they can control the amount of salt that they put on the meat. If you're sensitive to salt and you want to use less rub and you want to be able to visualize, how much salt is getting on the meat, that's a great way to do it. Separate out the salt and do that step separately, then apply the remainder of the rub ingredients, which you could just mix all together as a separate batch, second batch, and put that on over the salt. Personally, I don't do that. I guess I'm lazy. It also wasn't the way that I learned how to make barbecue rubs back in the day. So I just put all my ingredients together into one shaker, mix them up, and I apply them. And I rely on the recipe and the ratios in the recipe to just dictate how that rub is going to taste. And if I don't like it, I probably won't use that rub recipe again. But I don't separate out my salt from the other ingredients. Question number 4, can I cook fish and meat in the same smoker? Well, of course you can. If you're a backyard barbecuer, what are you going to do? Are you going to have one smoker for meat and pork and then another smoker for fish? Of course you're not. I have cooked salmon a number of times in my smoker, and I have then cooked meat or pork immediately after that and not experienced any ill effect. I think if you were very sensitive to it and you wanted to, you could burn out your cooker after cooking seafood if you felt like it had a pronounced flavor or aroma left over, you could burn out the inside of your Smoky Mountain Cooker, and we have instructions on the website for how you can do that. And that would help burn off the inside of the cooker and eliminate those aromatics and return your cooker to a more neutral state. But personally, I've never noticed a problem with it. I don't think most people do. There are some people in competition barbecue who are very, very particular about their cookers, and they don't want to mix things like seafood with beef and pork. There's an awful lot of things that people do in competition that are very, very particular and specific, things that we don't really need to worry about in the backyard. So if you hear that kind of thing, it's probably coming from someone who's in competition. And if you're not in competition, you're a backyard barbecuer, don't worry about it. Cook anything you want to cook in your Smoky Mountain Cooker. And if you find that it's got a funk inside, just burn it out before you cook the next time. Question number 5. Should I replace the access door on my Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker with one of those aftermarket doors? Short answer is no. If you've got a stock door that fits well, don't bother. Long answer. If you have a stock door that does not fit well, we have instructions on the Virtual Weber Bullet website for how you can attempt to bend your door into shape that provides a pretty good fit. And if you can do that, stop. Don't bother with a third-party door. If, however, you're unable to bend that door into shape, into a satisfactory shape that provides you with pretty good closure, and you don't want to tape your door shut. Some people actually seal the door shut, particularly if they're using some of these automatic temperature control devices, and they're very particular about how much air infiltration gets in the cooker. If you want to have a functional door that opens and closes, but you can't achieve that with the stock door, then consider a third-party door. Cajun Bandit makes the most popular one. It's a heavy stainless steel material. It generally works pretty well, although I've had a few reports from people that they have received ill-fitting doors from Cajun Bandit from time to time. So even that is not always a perfect solution. And they're not exactly cheap either. They look great, but they're not exactly cheap. There's also a third-party door whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a very substantial door that kind of bolts onto the outside of the cooker and stands proud of it. And that's another option that you can look for out there online. But if you can make the standard door work, by all means, make it work. And you don't need to worry about aftermarket doors unless you really have a problem with air infiltration. Question number 6. Why do you recommend Kingsford Charcoal in all your articles when there are so many better charcoals out there to choose from? Well, there are a lot of charcoals out there on the market at a lot of different price points. Not all of them are available nationwide. Some of them have to be mail ordered, which adds to the cost. My bottom line is you should use whatever you like, whatever you think makes good barbecue for you. But I'm in the position where I'm trying to write articles teaching people how to use their Smoky Mountain Cooker for the first time, and I want them to be successful. And I want to take as many variables out of the process as possible. And one of those is the charcoal that we use. So by recommending Kingsford, I know that it's a known quantity. It's available nationwide in every supermarket and hardware store across the country. Winter, summer, fall, spring, it's always available. It always performs the same way. It's always formulated the same way. So no matter where you live, whether it's in Maine or in Hawaii or in Seattle or in Florida, you're going to get essentially the very same product. So you'll get the same result in the instructions that I give in my recipes. So it's just a way for me to simplify things for new users and help them take just one more variable off the table so that they can hopefully be successful in getting started with their cooking on the Smoky Mountain Cooker when they're new. And then if they want to experiment with other charcoal later, they can always do that. Question 7. What's the biggest mistake made by new Smoky Mountain Cooker owners? Well, I'm going to provide 2 answers to that question. One is that I think new owners get in too deep in terms of modifications to their cooker and overthinking the whole process. You could spend days reading everything on the Virtual Weber Bullet website that I've created and all the videos that I have, and you can go out to YouTube and find a million other videos some of which conflict with the things that I say on my website. It can be overwhelming. And so sometimes you see new users come into the virtual Weber bulletin board discussion forum and they say, I just bought a brand new Smokey Mountain Cooker and here are the 10 modifications that I'm about to make. What do you think? And my reply usually is, don't do any of those things. I think you should assemble your cooker and you should build a fire in it and put some food in there and just start cooking. And cook 5, 10, 15, 20 times before you begin to even think about modifications. Because in that way you'll have some understanding really of what the cooker does, what it doesn't do. And if you find there's some shortcomings, then those are the areas in which you could consider modifications. So I'd say don't overthink it, don't get too complicated too fast, and wait when it comes to making modifications to the cooker until you have some experience under your belt. The second answer I was going to provide to that question is, I think another common mistake, a big one, is that new users and even old users sometimes apply too much smoke to their barbecue. I personally only use 2 or 3 fist-sized chunks, maybe 4 at the most, for a large cut of meat. More often than not, 2 or 3. Even for a whole brisket, a Packer brisket, I'll use maybe 3 fist-sized chunks of smoke wood. That's it. Now, there are other people who will apply a lot more smoke, and if you like the flavor, fine. Again, I'm not telling you not to do it if you like it, but generally I think it's very easy to put too much smoke on the meat, and you can't recover from that once it's happened. So my recommendation is always start low with, if you're doing, let's say, some chicken, I'd say use just even 1 chunk of wood and see what you think. Think of it as a seasoning, not as an ingredient. And just use a little bit of wood and see what happens. And if you feel like you need more, then you can add it next time. But you can never take it away once you've over-smoked your food. Question number 8. Does it make a difference if you place an onion, garlic, herbs, etc. on the hot coals while the meat is barbecuing? Does it add to the flavor of the meat? I don't think it adds to the flavor of the meat. I think it may add to the experience, the aroma around the cooker. If you find that enjoyable, if your guests, your family, your neighbors find that enjoyable, by all means do it. But I don't think that flavor really finds its way into the meat. Now, you may disagree if you have a very discerning palate. I don't think it makes a difference. Most people report to me that they don't think it makes a difference. So I think that you can put an onion or a head of garlic to better use somewhere else than to burn it up on the charcoal in your Smokey Mountain Cooker. Question 9. What's the one barbecue restaurant you'd like to visit and haven't been to yet? Well, I've had the pleasure of going to a few of them, a few really good ones. In 2000, I went to the American Royal Barbecue in Kansas City, and I didn't have my head screwed on straight. I should have spent more time there, and I should have crawled around town visiting joints. I only got to one, but I got to Arthur Bryant, which is sort of, the godfather of barbecue in Kansas City, and that was an enjoyable experience. It might not be the very best barbecue in Kansas City, but it's really iconic and definitely something that should be on your list to try, and I'm glad that I did. If I got back to Kansas City, I'd like to get to Joe's Kansas City Barbecue. I'd like to get to Jack's Stack. I'd like to get to BB's Lawnside Barbecue. I'd like to get to Gates Barbecue. That's another old school joint as well. Austin, Texas, Central Texas has amazing barbecue. I've had the pleasure of visiting Franklin Barbecue twice. It was worth the effort. I encourage you to go. You'll have some of the best, if not the best brisket you'll ever have if you get there. I've been to some of the places down in Lockhart, down in Luling. I've been up to Taylor, Texas, to all the usual suspects. If I got back to Austin, I'd like to get to La Barbecue. I'd like to get to Style Switch. Those are the two that immediately come to mind for me that I've not been to in Austin itself. Question number 10, final question. If money were no object, what kind of smoker would you have? And then a follow-up question, what tool or accessory would you have? I'm pretty happy with the Smokey Mountain Cooker. I don't think I'm in the market for any other kind of smoker, even if money were no object. But I guess if I had to fantasize about it, I would probably want a stick burner. I'd like to try my hand at that. I think some of those jumbo pits that you see are beautiful. and I wouldn't mind trying one of those. The other one that I'm aware of is that Aaron Franklin says he's going to come out with a stick burner. He's talked about it for a couple of years. I think he's behind schedule on it, but the guy knows a lot about making great barbecue, and he's built his own wood-fired pits for his restaurant, and the success speaks for itself. So I'd be interested to see what he had in terms of a backyard version of a barbecue pit. I might be interested in that if I had the room and if money were no object. In terms of tools or accessories, the one thing I would really like to have that I don't have the room for and I really can't justify is I'd like to have a commercial meat slicer. Not the rinky-dink thing you see in the cooking catalogs, but the real deal, the kind you see down at the supermarket or at the deli. I would love to be able to smoke a tri-tip or turkey breast and put that in my meat slicer and just cut that stuff thinly sliced consistently every time. I would love to be able to do that, but there's no way that's ever going to happen. I have no room for it, and I just really can't justify it. But that's a fantasy that I have in terms of tools. Well, that concludes this Q&A. I want to thank everybody for sending in these questions. If you'd like to send me more questions, you can email me at the address you see on the screen. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, or at the Virtual Weber bulletin board at TVWB.com. Please like and subscribe to my videos. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.